LaSalle. Two representatives tonight from Jones are with us, Dan Reedy, who is the project manager for this engagement, and David Lauder. The format for tonight's presentation, I had asked Jones to try to keep between 30 and 40 minutes on the presentation. This is not the full plan, this is an executive summary of the plan. The full plan is in excess of 100 pages. It is a public document. If you'd like one, please see Beth or I, and we'll arrange to get you that paperweight. Then after the presentation, I thought we'd hold 15 or 20 minutes open for comments and questions of either the Port Authority or the consulting team that helped put the plan together. So, Dan.
Thanks, Kevin. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start off just by introducing the team. Kevin mentioned John LaSalle was a project manager coordinating the efforts of the planning effort. But as you can see from the names on the bottom of the screen there, we were supplanted by Wolford, which is a architectural planning engineering firm. L&B, Lanham & Brown, an aviation planning consulting firm, and Unison Consulting is an aviation consulting firm that specializes in legal and regulatory analysis. So together we've been working on this project, of course, with Dave Lauder here, hopefully. And we're excited to share our conclusions. We put a lot of thought and effort into this planning effort. It's been a challenging assignment, and so hope to hear your comments and feedback when I'm done presenting. As Kevin mentioned, this is a summary of the executive summary, which I believe you all have seen. It's been on the website, and of course there's the full plan document that provides all of the background information, graphics, empirical evidence, and so on. Starting with our agenda, I'm going to go through an introduction, talk about the guiding principles of the plan, walk through the schedule of the planning process, talk about our approach to the planning process, walk through a summary of the highlights of our analysis, finalize that by walking through a summary of our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, SWOT analysis, and discussion of next steps. So as I mentioned, the planning team was JLL, led by JLL. We were supplanted throughout the planning process by a working group, which we met with at each stage along the way. We began our efforts in May. We met with the working group 3 times to kind of share progress, share insights, share conclusions. And we had some very lengthy discussions within that group. Each of the meetings lasted around 3 hours. So they were very helpful in making sure that our analysis and our recommendations were well thought out and would be well received in the community. So this definitely was a group effort. The consultant team did not do this in a vacuum. And the members of the working group specifically were David Reyes, the Mayor of Wilmington, Joe Zeese from the Dayton Development Corporation, Mike Curry, the Clinton County Commissioner, Tom Morst, the Allen County Commissioner, Dan Brake from R&L Carriers, Brad Heath from Ames, Chris Shaw from Clinton County Planning, and Kevin Carver from County Court. I'd like to take a minute just to talk about the guiding principles of the plan. One thing I want to stress is that the plan is really a fluid document, and it's meant to guide the efforts to generate economic development of the property. It is not a cure-all solution, nor is it intended to be a static solution. As the economy recovers from the recession and as events unfold in the global economy, the plan recommendations should be financially viable. It should be part of a long-term and enduring business model. It should be compatible with regional culture. It should be environmentally sustainable. So uses that do not fall within that framework, within the framework of those bullet points up above, we dismiss readily as not really fitting within the realm of the planning concepts that we would consider. Last thing I want to stress is just that the aviation infrastructure was really key to our assessment, and that it's really the differentiator for this asset. And so our plan really was geared to use the aviation infrastructure as a stepping stone for the recommendations in the plan. And I'll get into the reasons behind that in a few minutes. In terms of the guiding principles of the actual plan document, really what we were being charged to do is identify economic development opportunities based upon factual, empirical evidence, not word of mouth, not anecdotal evidence, not opinions or hearsay. Our recommendations are based on facts, based on research, and that's really the most important point I want everyone to know, is that we weren't taking just opinions from someone who's been somewhere and heard so-and-so somewhere, and so on. The next part of our analysis or our plan was to provide a set of next steps based upon our observations as a team. Just touching on our schedule real quick, I mentioned it earlier. We began this process in April, project kickoff. You may recall we had a public meeting back in May, a visioning session, to gather and incorporate feedback from the community that could be incorporated into the plan. Over the summer months was really our efforts in gathering due diligence information, interviewing stakeholders, and generating preliminary concept plans. We had a charrette back in the fall to kind of share our progress on the planning effort. And we finalized the plan in November. Touching on the planning process, you can see there with the graphic, there are multiple components that we analyzed that were ultimately incorporated into the plan. Starting with the current use analysis, we clearly wanted to understand what were the existing uses at the property. Clearly, ATSG is the primary use at the property, with their maintenance, serving as their headquarters and the maintenance, repair, and overhaul business that they have there. Cargo is a new use that was just recently introduced a few months ago as a new tenant. And then, of course, the surrounding uses were important as well. You have Laurel, Southern State, Washington, and some of the nearby uses we were considering incorporating into our thought process for the plan. We also looked at its site analysis, everything from accessibility to the location of utilities, environmental issues, the layout of facilities, the age of the facilities, the size, the functionality of the facilities, the layout of the facilities, zoning, and land ownership. We also looked at market data analysis for both aviation and non-aviation uses, air cargo and logistics, aerospace manufacturing, general aviation, flight training, and non-aviation uses, everything from manufacturing to traditional office to warehousing and distribution. We also looked at regulatory aspects, such as the status of the federal funding for the airport, use restrictions, and so on. Stakeholder analysis, I mentioned the visioning session we held, the charrette. We also conducted roughly 20 interviews with community leaders and stakeholders. We did a financial analysis looking at the revenues and the expenses for the Port Authority at the airport, and also looked at preliminary development feasibility for new construction at the airport. And then finally, we looked at the previous studies that have been conducted for the property, specifically county recovery strategy guidelines and the comprehensive economic development strategy reports that were completed in 2009. I'm going to go through kind of the highlights of each of those components that I just discussed. Starting with the current use analysis. As I mentioned, the property serves as ATSG's headquarters. They occupy roughly 518,000 square feet of office, hangar, and manufacturing space. Once the new jump hangar is complete, they will employ roughly 1,000 people at the property. Cargill, as I mentioned, also just recently signed a new lease for 7,200 square feet in the administration building. Looking at the site analysis, clearly the property boundaries there are highlighted in red. The aviation infrastructure at the property is modern. It's very remarkable. It's clearly the most differentiating asset of the airport. Accessibility, this map down here shows where the property is in relation to I-71. It's roughly 10 minutes from I-71. So in relation to other development sites, it may be along I-71 or I-75 to the north. You can see that the airport is not ideally situated for a traditional ground transportation distribution network. So therefore, the aviation use is clearly the differentiating portion or component of this property. That's something that I really want to stress. Location, location, location. And from a location standpoint, the opportunity for air access is the key differentiator. Lastly, from a physical site analysis standpoint, looking at the environmental issues for the property, the only area that would really encumber development in the future would be down here. There's some wetlands that may be mitigated, but overall, there's really unlimited potential for development of the property outside of the environmental constraints posed down here. This graphic here just kind of generally categorizes all the various components of the property. The areas in green are really categorized as airport use. So that would be everything from the runways to the no-build zones to the taxiways and the aprons. As you can see, that those areas of the property really consume most of the 2,000 acres. In fact, it's roughly half of the 2,000 acres is the aviation infrastructure, the runways and the taxiways and so on. The purple there is the hangars, and most of the space is occupied by ATSG. The yellow is the administration building. The red here is most of the sort facilities. The pink is the parking from the previous user. I want to also note that most of the property here to the south of Airborne Road is not served by utilities. So in the event that development occurs or is about to occur on this portion down here, some efforts may be to bring utility infrastructure to those sites. This is a close-up view of that area, the area on the property where most of the facilities are located, existing facilities. A couple things I want to point out here. Number one, as you can see here, the sort facilities are located very close to each other. They're all connected by a system of conveyors here. And most sort operations today, where you have a multi-tenant operation underway, such as any major airport, JFK or O'Hare, the facilities are located farther apart, number one. Number two, they allow for airside access. As you can see here, there's not enough accessibility here in between these sort buildings to allow for independent access for air and simultaneous access for ground transportation. So in the event to pursue a multi-tenant operation with the sort facilities, networking, these facilities may need to be modified to make them work. I also want to point out that many of these are currently vacant. You see, we're currently trying to mark them, but they're almost vacant. That's where the containers going. So, some consolidation point there. Discussing the safety analysis quickly, just some of the highlights that we received in the vision session and through email. Clearly, we want to maintain the aviation focus. We want to focus on diversifying the tenants and uses of the airport. I've listed some of the that we should investigate and rate them all off. We should acknowledge that there is a strong workforce here in the community. And some folks mentioned that we should benchmark the Lions Airport in Dallas as a similar economic development opportunity. And lastly, we should not pursue companies that are only interested in incentives. We also met with 20-plus organizations and companies as part of the stakeholder analysis. Again, we were told to maintain the aviation focus, to diversify, to not attract businesses based on incentives alone. And again, we were directed to investigate some of these issues listed above. Jumping into the market analysis. So this is a table you may recognize from the summary. Each of these circles indicates the strength of the market, with the darkest shading being the strongest, and the lightest shading being the weakest. So in this case, the weakest shading on here is the domestic air cargo. I want to start off with the air cargo. A couple statistics to point out. Explain the rating. North America's Asia is expected to grow to 7%. Asian cargo is also growing in general. This is a general trend. Domestically, that trend is much more muted, about 3% per year. Military aerospace standpoint, UAS or UAV spending is expected to increase over $2 billion over the next 2 years, few years I should say, and the Air Force Research Labs has already expressed an interest in establishing a presence at the property. Commercial and civil aviation, flight training surveys have indicated that, I should rephrase that, surveys of flight training companies in the region have expressed an interest in establishing an operation at the airport, in large part due to the unique aviation infrastructure that exists at the property. Traditional office, manufacturing, and distribution. I think you may know that the distribution vacancy rate in the nearby area is very high, almost 80%. From an office standpoint, the property presents one of the few Class A spaces in the market. So that is somewhat positive. And one of these are located at the property. From a manufacturing standpoint, our evidence indicated that in general manufacturing industries in Ohio are expected to decline. that CBG and Dayton are marketing approximately 1 million square feet of cargo, warehouse and cargo space. I also want to point out with the MRO, maintenance, repair, and overhaul, that worldwide, the MRO market is expected to grow 3% per year over the next 5 years, whereas domestically it's about 1% per year. But it is a proven business model, and so therefore we feel, and also our surveys with our discussions with Ames have indicated that there is a market for an expanded role of MRO property. Lastly, with passenger service, as someone mentioned, recommended for us to look at the passenger market. I think when you look at CBG, Dayton, and Columbus, the passenger volumes are all falling, especially CBG, something we notice. There's also a significant amount of vacant terminal space at all 3 of those airports that could be used to accommodate expanded growth in the near term. Jumping to the regulatory analysis, just a few things to discuss. I mentioned earlier the regulatory analysis focused on airport funding issues. One of those issues stems from the fact that the property is not currently on what we call NIMBY's list, National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems. That list dictates how the FAA determines its distribution for what they call airport improvement plan grants. An airport is not on the NIMBY's list, it is ineligible to receive airport improvement plan funding. Currently, the airport is not on that list. The second piece of that is Part 139 operating certificate. The operating certificate dictates, or is a certificate that indicates how an airport is secured and maintained from a safety standpoint. Most commercial airports of this size have a Part 139 certificate, and currently the Air Park has a Part 139 operating certificate, but the FAA has said that the long-term status of that certificate is in jeopardy because there are certain deficiencies that need to be rectified in order to keep it, namely the lack of a 10-foot fence, and the aircraft rescue vehicle that is currently in use is outdated and functionally obsolete. And so clearly, those are some issues that we looked at and could impact future development opportunities. I should also note that there are significant costs associated with maintaining the Part 139. The fence alone would cost approximately $3 million to replace. Lastly, our interviews with ATSG indicated that without the Part 139, ATSG would not be able to remain in business. And that is clearly a major concern. It is the only major business currently on the way at the air park. They employ roughly 1,000 people. And so therefore, that not having that certificate would really pose a serious threat to the viability of the airport. Just touching on the financial analysis, I mentioned some of the capital improvements that would be required as part of the Part 139, the ARC vehicle, for the fence. So you're looking at almost $5 million there just to address the Part 139 requirements. That does not include any other capital repair items that may come up with the air park, repairing runways, repairing aprons, and so on. The numbers you see there on the bottom are the estimated cash flows for the property, and you'll see there I've put in 2010, projecting out 2011 to 2015. You'll notice there's some negatives at the bottom line. That's even accounting for some one-time revenue generating estimates that we have for the sale of some obsolete equipment, or functionally obsolete equipment, sorting equipment. You see there, that's those $2 million. But incorporate just these requirements alone, the balance has been negative, significantly negative. So just to summarize the SWOT analysis, the strengths of the airport are clearly the modern airport technology, runway infrastructure, competitive wage rates, knowledgeable workforce, and the existing aviation uses, which we can build upon to market the airport to other users. From a weakness standpoint, the limited accessibility, the airport layout and functionality is clearly customized for a single user. So as I mentioned before, there may be some modifications needed to accommodate a multi-tenant operation. The lack of existing passenger and cargo traffic is somewhat of a challenge right now. Some opportunities of proximity to defense contractors and open airspace is especially applicable to UAV efforts. We've got 3 educational centers that are nearby that can be used as partners to attract companies and end users and identify synergies. There's a regional interest in using the airport for flight training, and an interest in expanded share of international air cargo from the Chinese and Asian countries. Just touching on threats very quickly, the other airports in the region with an excess capacity. I mentioned Dayton and CMG, high vacancy rate for logistics and facilities in the area, and generally in a very highly competitive region. Columbus, Cincinnati, and Dayton all competing for the same types of tenants that you are. So next steps. As I mentioned earlier, the Part 139 certificate and what it means to ATSG is clearly unmistakable in there. The need for this certificate and the cost associated with maintaining the certificate is one of the most pressing concerns for our team. And so we felt we would start off just by discussing that. In order to meet those requirements, I think there's a number of things that the airport could do, both from an operational standpoint and from a regulatory standpoint. And I mentioned those briefly above. Just in terms of maintaining financial viability in general, there are some things the airport can do just to lease space in the short term, while still providing flexibility in the long term to accommodate future tenants, monetizing obsolete equipment, selling good equipment, and I mentioned that there are efforts underway already to do that. Revisiting the property tax calculation to reflect the public ownership status of the airport. And then from a funding standpoint, the airport and the port should work to address the NIPIAS designation, and in doing so, a number of things may need to happen based on discussions with the FAA and the State Department of Transportation. The port may need to investigate opportunities or partnership opportunities with the General Aviation Department in the region. And then also, in order to receive airport improvement plan funding, the airport would need to complete what they call an airport layout plan, which would basically delineate the boundaries of the airport property and basically give the federal government an understanding of how their funds will be used in the future. I should mention that that airport layout plan is typically paid for in large part by the FAA as part of the application for the grant. As I mentioned in the market analysis, we feel that one of the most near-term and high probability opportunities for economic development at the property is really going to stem from potential partnership opportunities feel that those efforts should really be done in earnest going forward. And more than any other opportunity that we saw in the marketplace, this property is uniquely situated to accommodate those uses. And that is a definite win-win, we feel, for the region. Another opportunity we feel would be high probability would be partnership opportunities with flight schools in the region, just based upon the surveys that we conducted with a number of the regional flight training schools, as well as with the neighboring colleges. Our discussions with stakeholders and community leaders also believe that more can be done to facilitate partnerships with the colleges and with the airport and with the businesses in the region. And clearly there's an interest in flight training, and clearly there are opportunities there to streamline communications and make sure that those opportunities are fully explored. From an air cargo standpoint, we believe that Asia provides the best opportunity to expand upon the air cargo capabilities of the airport. Clearly, the property is well suited to accommodate the cargo operation. And there are efforts that can be taken to partner with international trade agencies, trucking companies in the area, regional manufacturing companies in the area that may export goods to China. It could be used as an opportunity to provide what they call backhaul. Some of those companies currently may use what they call freight forwarders who ship many goods from Ohio through Louisville or through Indianapolis. There may be an opportunity for some companies to instead use cargo carriers flying directly into Wilmington. There also are opportunities for a manufacturer, if you think about it, to locate directly on the airport property and, in a sense, truncate the supply chain. If you have a situation where a manufacturer gets a lot of their parts and supplies via air, technology company that is heavily relying on speed to market, may find a benefit locating directly or with direct access to the airport so that they do not need to rely on ground transportation to get their parts and assembly. We also feel that the airport should begin efforts to generate a marketing plan that would facilitate a lot of these economic development opportunities. Lastly, the airport should explore opportunities to modify the layout of the sort buildings just on a preliminary basis. That could be done in tandem with potential companies and end users. And as I mentioned lastly, the economic incentives could be used to fund infrastructure, especially on the southern portion of the property where utilities are lacking. That's more of a long-term need. But in the event that a company comes in and says, I'm interested in a portion of the airport that's south of River Road, tax increment financing can definitely be used to facilitate the development of infrastructure on that side, on that portion of the property. I think that wraps up, and I'm happy to take questions. I know there's a lot of information there. A lot of it I went over at a very high level. Some of it is explained in more detail in the executive summary, and some of it is explained in more detail in the plan document itself. But I'm happy to take questions on behalf of the team. I should also note, if you don't have questions now, I'm happy to take them later by email or
Your slide on financials, is that taking into consideration the potential tax liability change?
yes,
That's already taken that into account?
it assumes a reduction. that's an executive summary.
You've got two groups, general aviation and the UAVs that you're soliciting or trying to attract. How do you see those two groups using the same airspace?
Well, that's really a question of how the UAVs want to operate. You know, frankly, I don't know enough about the Air Force Research Lab's desired intent for the property itself. I have heard that they're more interested in using the southern runway. And so therefore, that would kind of really draw a line between AFRL's UAV thing on the southern runway, and we've got ATSG, which uses the northern runway, and you could potentially share that northern runway with a general aviation operation. Neither runway has much air traffic on it now at all, except for the occasional inbound and outbound of the planes that are under maintenance. I take my ATSG, so in my view, and based upon what I know about the AFRL's near-term efforts to test UAVs, which they're going to start on a fairly small scale, from what I understand. In my view, UAVs could be used on either one. And that's just in the near term. Now, over the long term, as the UAV efforts gain momentum, and maybe they're launching more planes every day, they may need to move to either one runway or the other. If that's the case, it would probably be the southern runway because it's the least utilized at the moment. And then, well, does that answer your question? Yeah. I think there's the AFRL is still trying to understand. Maybe Dave will have it.
AFRL in their COA application to the FAA is described in a lot more detail how the two types of traffic would interact. And that's a pretty hot topic for the FAA right now as they try to understand how, in the long run, UAVs are going to operate in U.S. airspace. Obviously, it's a changing environment, and what we hope to be is on the forefront of that, so that we can become a test bed for the next-gen software and control systems that the FAA is going to deploy.
And currently, UAVs are only allowed in like an MOA or restricted airspace.
Right.
So you're changing the rules out here?
Well, go ahead.
No. Our discussions with the FAA, they believe that UAVs are allowed in both COAs and MOAs, under certain exceptions. So what the Air Force Research Lab has done is they have applied for a specially designated airspace called a COA. It's their intention that literally it would be used like a light switch. They would turn it on and off at regularly pre-scheduled times. So that at certain times during the day, certain days of the week, those UAVs would be up in the air and airborne. They still have to live within the FAA guidelines, which means line of sight, either from the ground or in chase vehicle. But at least initially, the Air Force is anticipating that the UAVs will only fly at certain times during certain days. And that would be well published ahead of time and people would know about it.
That's the way MOAs are typically set up right now. And there are times when I can't even fly down to Portsmouth, Ohio, which is the majority of the time, because those MOAs are what we call hot. And once they're hot, you don't intrude in there, or you don't have an F-16 beside you, talking to you and telling you to land. And that can be real serious for us. This is general aviation.
What the FAA has told us, or the Air Force Research Lab has told us, is that part of the reason for the attractiveness of this location is the close proximity to the MOA. They would like to get UAVs from Wilmington in this color into the MOA, because the MOA provides even more flexibility for what you can and can't do with UAVs.
Yeah, absolutely. But when those UAVs are in transit, it just shuts down the airspace.
Well, the discussion didn't get into that level of detail. I think the first concern was a lack of facilities that could accommodate a training program. I think the aviation infrastructure that's in place is very intriguing to the flight training programs. However, the lack of hangar space that could accommodate their planes and the classroom space may be an hindrance in early stages. But we feel that those issues could be surmountable by just further discussions and more detailed discussions from the flight training, with the flight training programs. Well, on their part, yeah, well, that would be something that they would cover, yes. Okay.
When you look at the potential tenants that you've identified, have you identified the employment potential of those various potential tenants as far as creating local jobs, revenue streams for the Port Authority, the operational costs of the airport, and things of that nature?
Well, our focus was on uses that would create jobs. We were not tasked with actually quantifying the number of jobs. Our task was to find uses that could generate jobs and create economic development fit within the guidelines of what I showed earlier in the presentation. So, for instance, and there are a couple of other things we immediately dismissed out of those guidelines. So, for example, we discussed very briefly the fact that the Air Force may be interested in using the SORT facilities as a warehouse, which is something that would not create any jobs, just clearly something we dismissed. Somebody also brought up the idea of, the airport may create jobs or may be attracted to an overseas investor who may want to buy it all. And that's clearly not within the framework of a diversification strategy. So that's something we also dismissed. Now, there are clearly, from a job generation standpoint, some challenges. Now, I've heard some other folks mention that the UAV program is only expected to, near term, generate a handful of jobs because they're going to start out small. But in my view, given what I've seen empirically, in the long term, thinking long term, the UAV market is very much well suited for this property and could generate a significant number of jobs in the long term. Same thing with the international air cargo market, where you've got an opportunity to co-locate manufacturing and air cargo, logistics, distribution, which are all high employment industries per square foot, I guess would be the metric. May not be a lot in the near term, but over the long term, based on the projections, 20-year projections we're seeing, well, that's where the real opportunity is. Yes.
With the post office likely closing its location in Cincinnati in the near future, is that a possibility to relocate them to the airport, or would that be something that might not fit with the overall aviation focus?
The issues with I think with the property and with the facilities that are currently there, I think it probably could be located there, but it would require some significant investment. The post office carries all their mail, or most of their mail, through passenger planes, which is, I don't know how they would outline that model they've used for a long time. I think it could work. I don't know enough about their proposal to really understand what they're thinking about doing. But I do know that without passenger service, this property would have a hard time accommodating that in their current model. Any other questions? Yes.
The 139 certificate, is that for
require their planes to land in Part 139 airports for security and safety reasons. It's just an insurance requirement.
So is that, I'm asking, is that for the ATSG carriers, meaning like ADX, ATI, Capital Air Cargo, is it for them mainly, or other customers?
I believe it's for both.
Have you looked at asking to get a waiver on their certificates where it would not have to be 139?
It would put them at a competitive disadvantage that in order to do business with their customers, that the customers would have to jump through this extra, could it be overcome? Who knows, but it would definitely put them at a competitive disadvantage and would cause a significant hardship, and they would, without a doubt, lose some business as a result of this. Does that mean that no one could ever land here again? No. I mean, obviously, you're legally allowed to land in an airport that's not 139, but the priority is to maintain it so that they have the opportunity to succeed, the best opportunity to succeed. So, that's the importance of it. And as we attract other business, the idea is to get more planes landing on this runway. That's going to be hard to do if we're requiring a waiver from every insurance company or every plane on the planet.
You need a 139 certificate if you ever have a chance to take the same, correct? The funding?
No, because there are general aviation airports that have these status.
It's more the other way around. The NIMBY status helps us maintain 139 because it provides the money mechanism.
I'd like a little further definition on the jobs that, in your plan, are you assuming that these research companies are going to come and be based here for the research and development of flight testing, or they're going to come here and use the facility for flight testing?
We've already had significant interest from contractors in anticipation of us being able to accommodate UAVs here. I am quite confident that there will be jobs at contractors that are located here, full-time employment, not coming in, testing your vehicle, and going back to date. The contractors that we've talked to are interested in having a presence here.
Happy to take any other questions. Okay. Well, thank you all. Appreciate your thoughtful questions and feedback. Appreciate the opportunity to work on this project. And like I said, please feel free to send me comments, questions my way by email.
All right. We'll make it very easy. This is Lee, and I'm with Scott Kirster. He's the incoming Wilmington City Council president, and you've been on City Council before, but probably not this much economic stress, Scott.
Oh, absolutely. I was on council up until the end of 2007. When I left council, the HO was moving in annexing in actually 2008. The jobs were growing, the economy was doing great. So I have not faced and I think we could be in 2012 after these big homes were built in. As I talked a little bit ago, some other folks that I think we're getting I agree with you. I think that I was hoping that 2012 will be that year where all look at it and we know we have cleared the hurdle, and now we're going to be investing the future back. I think that the economy is stabilizing, and I'm optimistic that hopefully 2012 will be a year where we see some job growth, even locally, but importantly, see job growth in our country. I'm optimistic that hopefully we will see some.
One of our strengths, as was pointed out here tonight, not only do we have a tremendous facility here that really nobody else has available right now, that we have tremendous workforce available to incoming employees.
Well, that's very true. Our people are an incredible strength, and I think it's a real asset because when you look at the education, I can't figure out right here in our town, in our community. When you look at the work ethic of the people that we have here locally, I think we just got a great resource that cares about doing a job right, doing a job well. I think that matters.
I agree with you. I know that these different players roll around and really looking forward to that.
Well, I'm looking forward to the opportunity to start doing what I can to solve the problems that the people like me work with. I mean, it's representing the people and working with them that really I'm looking forward to. So I am optimistic. But we've got our work done here, so we've got to roll up our sleeves and get moving. I think that's what I'm looking forward to. Really get in there, roll up our sleeves, to get that budget under control, stop the deficit spending.
Well, I'm here to get back to working with the city council and getting
I definitely want to do that because the government that people don't see is one that doesn't work. So the more that we can get access to the better off we are. And I think we're starting to do that. I've already had a couple of discussions about the logistics of things that we need to look at. Try and be sure that we can keep the feet out there because they're way out in the community so they can always turn the body.
Very good. I'm looking forward 4 hours behind. Thank you, Scott. All right, church here. So the city council and Wilmington our stuff. We're here. We have an interesting meeting here tonight. I just think the machine
I normally have to leave myself in the fact
He is busted. He said, you come to this thing? I said, I'm starting to read about Kim Jong-un.
Right. And that's why I think
I had wake up at 1:30 and I started freaking out. I was trying to catch up with everything. But hell, I couldn't stay awake in this car last night. I was passing.
I think that one thing is the flexible nature of the aircraft. The aircraft is it can be used for a multitude of different things too. like we've had operation.
That was, that wasn't the first day.
Yes,
They would got
the important thing to do is, as we reach those, is closing ideas. Because, you know, they come from anywhere. Now, you need to go out there, you need to.
That actually was.
You just don't want to.
Nobody just
fall out of the sky and just. But they're ready. Right, you want to be ready for it. But at the same token, you can't. The plan and the plan over. We're not going to consider it. I think they've done a pretty good job of really trying to be multi-development. Right. The part where they showed it, the breakdown. Of the map. 7 hours. Here's the transportation. What you got is food manufacturing, the whole gambit. It really makes a lot of sense.
They censor everything you look at. Because they're taking into consideration the UAVs and all that. The whole ministry. I told Shane,
educational purpose. We have the institution, right?
In the past, we've educated aircraft mechanics. Exactly. That's right. I have been educated through local educational institutions, so that, as you say, is a big part.
Oh, yeah. Well, the music thing is, we have overlooks and stuff like that, which have already their ability to turn on a dime. Right. You know, to turn on whatever it is that they need to address almost immediately. Lower looks, literally, you know, 6 months and they've got a program together. Southern State is, you know, 4 or 5 months behind them. Right. You know, which is good for you, but the lower students coming out and they're trying to do Southern State. You know, and then when we get to college, you need to put that cap on. Right. You know, that ability to, okay, you really need the higher education. Here's your language. Right.
What, is there anything new coming down the road?
I do.
Always on top of things coming and going.
To be honest, there's all kinds of things going on out here at the airport, in the city and in the county. The thing is, it always takes a little longer than you expected, or think it should take.
Right.
But the positive thing is the opportunities. There are lots and lots of opportunities that are coming, so you just keep throwing them along. The more opportunities you have, the better the chances that you're going to land them. I fully expect that in the first quarter, one of the ones that has been worked on by the city, the county, and Brett Dixon, it is going to come to fruition, and that one will be a large one. That will be a very large announcement. But even if that doesn't come through, we have so much backed up behind them, you know, for opportunities. It's just finding the right pieces and putting the puzzle together, and that just takes time and it takes dedication. And thankfully, we really do have a good group of people that are really dedicated towards getting it done.
Yes. I think we're heading down a path that in the next year, 2 years, that we can see tremendous change.
Oh, to be honest, I mean, 2011 was substantially better than 2010. And I'm just as positive that 2012 will easily eclipse 2011 in regards to positive attributes. And I mean, to think back upon it, I mean, some of the accomplishments in 2011 were monsters.
Oh, sure.
You know, the landing of the funding for the hangar, the finishing of the Tolliver Fields project, and getting certification on that. We've had new businesses, many new businesses in Wilmington.
Sure.
Blanchester's had quite a few new businesses, you know, open up in it. And slowly but surely, that unemployment rate has slowly been finally heading in the right direction. So it's clear to me that we have bottomed out. The problem is, how long will it take us to get out of that?
And one of the new businesses, and we need to maybe talk about them a little, is Total Baking Solutions at the old Randall Textron facility. That's put people back to work.
Oh, Total Baking has been working out real well. They had a little bit of a growing pain issue, the big jump from Montana to here. Right. Massive costs in regards to that. And while there may have been a little bit of concern for a while, they clearly come out of it and are moving forward. And the amount of equipment in that facility is astounding.
They've got their kitchen up and running, so that as clients express interest in their ovens, they're able to actually do demonstrations.
I
Right
heard
there
it
on
makes some
site.
pretty good cookies out there.
Yeah, I don't know how everybody else is getting the cookies, but I haven't
I
gotten
haven't
any
gotten
yet.
any yet either, but I've heard rumors anyway.
But yeah, no, it's been very, very positive, and things definitely seem to be going in the right direction for them, and I'm very happy with them.
Well, we better get out of here before they kick us out. I think everybody
I think
else.
we're the last two in the
All
room.
right, Rob Denny, Wilmington City Councilman, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lee.
Okay. Well.